Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes for people to join, and then we'll get started. All right, I'm sure some other people will start to file in, but just to go through some housekeeping things, if at any point you have questions, you can raise your hand and I will work to get you unmuted so we can get you live and asking questions. You can also use the Q&A and chat functionality in your window if you're not privy to wanting to ask your question live. So without further ado, I'll ask Kent. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give us a little bit about your background?
Sure. Thanks for joining, everybody. I appreciate that it's a difficult time for a lot of you. So thank you for being here, and hopefully you find this session helpful. My name is Kent Jones. I'm a professor at Georgia State University in Atlanta. I teach marketing and professional sales certification there, so I have a lot of opportunity to work with next gen of our sales force. I'm also, in my spare time, I'm an entrepreneur, and I consult on sales, solution marketing, and customer discovery. The reason I wanted to do this today is because I recognize it's a difficult time, and it's also a new experience for a lot of people. For the last 10 years, we've encountered relatively confident and enthusiastic customers. Maybe not always felt that way, but in general, they've been seeing things on an upswing, and they're trying to get better, and they have some aspirational goals, and that has changed. Typically, buyers buy for two reasons. They're either buying to achieve a gain or avoid pain, and primarily for the last 10 years. They've been open to a gain, the aspirational, what they can be, collaboration, innovation, things like that have been their focus. Now suddenly it's all changed, and they're freaked out in many cases, and they're looking for shelter. And since scared buyers rarely buy anything, they're just frightened and risk averse. That's a new experience, and so I wanted to have an opportunity to talk about that. Because I realized for a lot of people, it's not an environment that they've encountered a lot. It's definitely going to change up the way we present to customers, the value props that we talk about, what's going to get them done. And so I think it's new territory in many cases. I've been through 5 of these cycles. I started my career in a down cycle and just didn't know any better. But it can be difficult. It'll make your sales craft stronger, but it's going to be an adjustment.
Awesome. So I'm actually going to kick us off with the first question. Before I do that though, just so everyone knows that this is going to be recorded. So if you need to drop out or want this for later, we are recording this, and Kent is available in our Slack channel for questions that maybe you want to answer privately or through that medium. But first question, so you wrote an article, The Virus Ate My Sales Forecast. And in that you talk a lot about fear and that kind of being a driver for people holding back on buying right now. Can you talk a little bit about ways that you see are successful in overcoming that fear in a sales role?
Yes. So I think there's a couple steps to this. One of the things that I think we have to do to accomplish this, we've been trained for a long time to recognize that the qualified buyer has money, need, and power, those three things. And that's still true, but we need to requalify everybody, because whatever they said 6 months ago or 6 weeks ago in some cases isn't the case anymore. Their needs are different. Their money situation is likely different, and potentially their authority and process for getting the deal done are different. So that is one step in doing this. We also need to reorient. We have a new decision maker, and that's going to be the chief financial officer. Every company now, that is the focus space. Whatever your line of business buyer that you've been dealing with is fine, but ultimately they're going to be scrutinizing budgets a lot more closely and looking for a tangible return on investment. And I think that's one of the shifts that I think that you have to anticipate and prepare for as you sell, is being able to show how your solution is going to deliver a tangible ROI, often a very financial payback, or deliver on some other major strategic goal that the company sees as a priority. At least for the short term, they're going to be focused on things that really help protect their business continuity and stability. And a lot of the other projects are just going to be viewed as nice to have. We'll deal with that in 6 months when this fires thing is passed or whatever. But if we want to sell today, we kind of have to change up our game.
Okay. We do have our first question from Anonymous. So it says, there's a lot of talk around being a wartime CEO versus a peacetime CEO. How should my sales strategy change?
Are you speaking, the question, are you speaking in terms of targeting of that, or are you thinking about it as you're the CEO, you're the entrepreneur looking at your sales team?
Targeting. Okay.
So if we're targeting the CEO, then we need to change up their message. They're freaked out right now. They may be seeing their business evaporating underneath them. Their revenue's down. Their employees aren't there. They're in many cases very worried about business continuity. So again, kind of in the same vein as the chief financial officer, they're going to be looking for things that help them move the needle or protect what they have. And again, things that are kind of aspirational improvements, they may not know exactly what they need yet. They may see that the world is different, their customer patterns are different, maybe their financial resources are different. Perhaps there's either revenue or investments dropped out from under them. So a lot of these things about being better may be kind of put off in their mind. They're trying to put out a fire right now, and repainting the house is a secondary priority when the house is on fire. But they are worried about the house not burning down. And so if you can show them, and it may just be a tweak of your messaging or better understanding of kind of where you can help them put out the fire, then you can position your solution as the fire department and the fire extinguisher that's going to help them prevent this damage from going further and getting out of control. So I think that's what we did before is still relevant, and that may be the second act for some of these sales that we get into now. But for the short term, I think we really have to focus on how we're going to help them protect what's important to them.
Okay. We had another question that says, do you agree that anybody who says they understand this environment for sales is wrong? And then they go into trying to understand, since this is a new environment, no one's really sold in this environment before.
That's fair. While the economic cycles have come and gone, I mean, this is probably the 5th recession cycle that I've sold through, and people out there that have sold through more than that. The virus component, I think, probably does raise some new issues. But it's still, we've sold through wars in the past. I mean, there's this, if you want to look at it as a wartime kind of an issue, companies do ramp up for that. We go back to World War II and you see, industry didn't go away. Things did not stop. A lot of businesses actually did quite well during that time. Humanitarian costs aside, I mean, the companies that were involved in the defense effort prospered. And there are going to be companies that are involved in our defense effort here, if you will, and that may be some of our targets. We have to maybe look and see where the segments. Maybe some of our customers, they are shell shocked, and there isn't going to be a lot that they can do in the short term because maybe their market's gone away entirely. Maybe they're an airline or a hotel chain or some other business, restaurants that are very severely impacted. But there may be other industries that are booming, whether it's telecommunications. I mean, if Netflix, all the video streaming, all that stuff, that's another segment of the economy that is growing with this. So I think part of adapting to this is just recognizing, even in this environment, there are opportunities, and you just have to be aware of kind of where you can play and solve problems.
Okay. Greg Howard, one of our startup members, asks, well, he says first, there are a number of prospects that use a paper process. It hides insight into construction project health. How do you put an ROI on being able to see project financial health? They've already had customers say they have made decisions to save money on projects that they would not have had the opportunity to.
Can you repeat a piece of that? I want to make sure I don't overlook it.
Sure. The basis of the question is, how do you put an ROI on being able to see project financial health?
I think probably the best way is if you can't see what I guess goes back to the old adage, what gets measured gets improvement. And so if you can't see the financial health of your project, it's not going to be as profitable as it might have been otherwise. And I think that at a very basic level is going to be a critical issue for people. There is a very tangible ROI to it. If you're dealing with a project that is unprofitable, and there's going to be a lot of pressures that are doing that. People, subs can't get supplies, or they have workforce outages. So that means that now they're not on the job site, and the project stretches out 4 weeks more than it was supposed to. I mean, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, which I think, since there's things we can't control, I think it makes it that much more important to have a way to control the things that we can and keep the visibility over the things that we can do. So I think if I were looking for a way to show ROI from that, that would be kind of where I would start, showing how you can help them protect. And that actually can be a useful thing as buyers are scared and they become risk averse. They do tend to be less risk averse when it comes to protecting things that they have. Maybe very leery of taking on anything brand new, but kind of in the same way that we buy insurance or other protection we pay for medical care and things like that. Even in tough times, people make certain investments to protect what they have. So I think I would look again back to the ROI issue. If they've got a lot built around achieving a profitability goal for a project, that may be something that's worth protecting to them, and they may be willing to take a slightly bigger risk to protect that item.
Okay. So here's a little bit of a more tough question. So Anonymous says, my company facilitates purchasing real estate. My entire pipeline is stalled. I can't afford to keep my entire sales team on payroll. Their instinct is to reduce the highest paid, but they are also the highest experience. Or do I send everyone home?
That's a good question. That is a tough question, and I think the part of the answer in that is what is their productivity. There's no point in keeping low-cost people around if they can't get the job done. And on the same token, a high flyer, we have to look at why have they succeeded? Is it because they're dealing with the type of account that no longer exists, or have they been able to pioneer into uncharted territory and take on new projects and things like new areas that didn't exist before. I think I would look at their abilities to adapt in this environment. I think that is really going to be one of the big challenges. And I think it also bears into mind that the way that not only the way customers are buying is changing, but the way that we're selling is changing too, because we're having to do this video conference, that the whole face-to-face thing, or just on the phone, and that inside sales function can be a very difficult transition for people that have a long history of selling in the field. I started in inside sales. I've managed and built a lot of inside sales teams, and then figured out how to work them in the field. But I think that's one of the things that I've seen is oftentimes the reps that have built their expertise and their track record around a face-to-face handshake kind of a model can really struggle when you take that away from them. And a rep that has always been on the phone and has always learned to deal with social media and things like that tends to thrive in that environment. That's not as big of a shift for them. So I think that would be one factor that I would consider as who to keep. It's not strictly in what I'm paying them. It's what I'm anticipate that I'm going to get out of that payment in this new environment. History is, I hate to do that, hero to zero kind of a thing. We always get dinged on that in sales, but in sales, we are always as good as our next forecast that we can deliver on. And so I would look at seeing how you anticipate people can perform in this new environment where maybe we're having to do a lot of things remote, can't put eyes on things the way that we like to.
Before I get into the next question, you said something really interesting. You talked about who can adapt. What kind of people do you think adapt the best in this environment?
I think that people that are showing a willingness to learn and change adapt very well. One thing, and this, you're probably not doing a lot of hiring right now, but one thing that I like to see when I'm interviewing people is that they've picked up and moved from somewhere. I don't care if it's from Cleveland or from overseas or wherever. I've found that there's some positive correlation. If somebody can look at their environment and say, this isn't working, I need to change, and I'm willing to take a risk to do it. I think that has, in my experience, that has proved out to be a good indicator that they will adapt to the sales environment that you throw in. They're not just repetitive. I'm just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So I think I would look for people that have shown an ability and a willingness to learn and try new things. They're not averse to training. They're not averse to being wrong or admitting that they're wrong. I think that adaptability is important. I think also their tolerance for an uncertain environment. Some salespeople do very well in a make it up as you go kind of a world. They're not frightened by that. They feel like, I'm going to land on my feet. I will figure this out. I'm going to be okay. So I don't care that I don't know what's going to happen next. But not everybody's like that. Some people, they get very anxious about that kind of uncertainty, and they don't do well with it. And I think we are going to have a lot more of that uncertainty for probably at least the next 12 to 18 months. World's going to feel pretty different and uncertain. Nobody's going to know exactly sure. In the same way, our buyers don't know how long this cycle is going to last. Will we have size in 6 months?
Oh, Kent?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, I think you're back. Something glitched in your sound just a little bit, but I think we're okay. Good answer. So I won't butcher this person's name, but they asked, I think, a question that a lot of us have, and that's, how do you prospect and not come off as insensitive in this current situation? So most firms that they're selling to are freaking out because of potential residents not paying rent, acquisitions on properties are on hold, and so forth.
So that's a very good question. And actually, I had, for those that follow me on LinkedIn or Medium, you may have seen I posted something yesterday that kind of gets to that issue. So, after this call, that might be a resource to go into. But there are some ways to engage customers in this time, but you have to make some adjustments and size things up. I'm one of those crazy people. I like cold calling. I really enjoy it. It's fun for me. Most people hate it. But I recognize that to be successful with it, you have to have an anticipation of where your customer's head's at, and an ability to respond appropriately to them, not be just the same robotic message over and over again. So with that in mind, I think your strategies will vary. If you've got a customer that's maybe they're in a highly conflicted area right now, maybe they're in the Northeast and there's a lot of challenges, and it's heartbreaking. This is not going to be a time that you're going to go in there probably and talk to them about a lot of new initiatives. Remember that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where the self-actualization and love and all that are on the top. They're down on the bottom. They're in the food, clothing, and shelter mindset. And so when buyers are there, you're not going to be able to sell them a higher level thing. You might be able to sell them a bottle of water, but not much more. So in that case, I think your best move is to just be human and just empathize that they're, hey, I know this is a really tough time. Just wishing the best health and safety for you and your family. That may be it. And I realize that's not a great prospecting message. I'm not anticipating that customer that needs that is going to be a great prospect anyway. This is just giving them a thoughtful, caring response that doesn't do any damage. Customers that are not quite in that same shock level, maybe they're just worried about things. There's uncertainty. If you can be a little bit more ambitious, I think that they're good candidates for free trials, other kind of low risk engagement information. You may be able to establish some goodwill, maybe a little bit more of a long game. This may not be something that produces revenue for this 30-day forecast, which I realize is painful, but it still can be a productive investment in a longer term situation. Because a lot of customers, right now we're in a brand new stage with this, everybody's freaked out, we don't know what's happening next, but it will start to stabilize. There will start to be some kind of a predictable routine of whether it's a bad one, who knows, but that will give people a little bit more confidence to start planning and considering different ideas and how they protect things, because there'll be a little bit more stability. So I think the answer is to just adapt. If the customer is not in a buying mode at all, don't try to twist their arm. This is not a time to apply pressure. They got enough already. That's not going to work. But not everybody's in that mindset. So you have to be able to anticipate and read that. Maybe if you know that particular customer segment is having all the cutbacks and problems, maybe that's not the ideal place to target. And there may be other sectors that are, or come up with a different message for them that very quickly, maybe it's not the same thing you've been selling them. Your old value prop may be obsolete. It was great back in December, not now, on hold for a while. So that that may be another angle of maybe your prospecting message that you've been using won't work, but that doesn't mean there's not one at all.
Another question kind of coming off from that. So how would you pivot your value proposition so quickly?
I think you have to really be looking at how their business operates. It's a good question, because a lot of times when we go into the customer environment, we're there to talk about our solution, and that is not necessarily where we can start with this. As sales reps, we fundamentally have three functions. We need to empathize with the customer, which not means that we're feeling sorry for them. We need to really get in their head, understand what their challenges and priorities are, what they need to see happen, what goodness looks like for them, what obstacles they face. That understanding can give us then the path to educate them, which is the second stage, on what our solution can do and how we can solve the problems that we uncovered during that initial empathy stage. So I think pivoting, you have to get in there and really understand your customer's process and think about how this may be impacting them and the challenges that's creating for them. Maybe maybe the biggest impact in this is that their workforce can't show up. Maybe they're a contractor and they're having to do more with fewer people. Maybe there's a solution sale in there for something that helps them automate that function and overcome that staffing issue. If they lack the visibility that they need into projects, maybe a tool that helps them gain that visibility back will be seen as a valuable solution to solve a problem that they've got right now. And then connecting the dots, if some of the things that I've been talking about in my article that I wrote about engaging these customers, you do have to be able to connect the dots between whatever benefits that you're selling to the local buyer, to that end user. There needs to be a connect the dots with how those benefits roll up to serve a bigger corporate priority. So if the corporation has said, we're in a cost-cutting mode, these are our strategic priorities that we're having to protect. You want to figure out then, how can I show, if they're in a cost-cutting mode, I'm gonna have to show how I can help them save money or prevent them from spending more money than they have to. I think the key is there's a cost to buy, and people tend to focus on that. What are the payments going to be? How do I finance this? And there's also a cost to not buy. What goes wrong if you don't do this? And I think it's that second, the cost to not buy, that we have to get a lot better at. And so that requires us to ask some different questions, to get in there, to see where our customers are facing problems, and to be able to say, wow, that sounds really painful. I mean, how are you dealing with that? And what does that look like? How's that going to play out? If that continues, what does that look like for your business? And if we could help you maybe protect and prevent that from going in a bad direction, does that make a difference that's useful for you? I think that gives you then a little bit more of an angle to showing them, we can help you. Yes, we're asking you to spend some money on our solution, but we're helping you to avoid this bigger cost, this bigger pain that's coming. But that's not a formulaic kind of a thing. That is going to be somewhat unique, if not to individual customers, at least segments of the market. And so that may be kind of another angle of this. You have to perhaps focus on, this might be a good time to kind of arbitrarily focus on certain sections of the market and get really a clear understanding, an intimate understanding of how that business works. Because to sell effectively in this climate, you really ideally want to be more of an expert on how they can save money than they are right now. That way you can get something to educate them on. But that's tough to do if you're selling to 50 different verticals, because you don't know the jargon, you don't know the mechanics of their business, things like that. That makes it really hard to quickly jump in there with the message. But if you're dealing with a kind of a focused vertical industry that has similar operating metrics and methods, you may be able to find a path that works for one that's then a replicable model that you can take across that segment.
Okay. So another question from Anonymous, and they say that they've actually been able to pivot their product to mitigate a lot of the conditions of the pandemic. But how do they approach cold outreach without seeming opportunistic?
That's a good question. The article that I put up on Medium kind of gets into that. There's, it's difficult. You don't want to be crass and, like you say, opportunistic. Nobody likes a vulture. But that comes a lot in terms of, they come to that conclusion a lot in terms of the timing and the presentation. So we do have to be very careful about exactly how we present our message, and what we're asking for. I think it's probably better to present it in an informative way that gets people engaged, without looking like we're expecting something in return. Providing information or public resource, free trial, things like that, may be a way to start to get your message out, build that customer awareness and engagement. But because you're delivering value before you asking for anything in return, I think it probably will help you avoid that opportunistic appearance, because you're not taking, you're bringing something of value to this space right now, as your first move.
Okay. And then Yulia, who is in our startup lab, she says, we sell large enterprise software as a service. And before we were selling the field offices, we have realized that in the current situation, data that our SaaS helps to collect in real time is very valuable to C-level. The answer that we get from C-level is that they have time to implement, that by the time they implement it across the field offices, the market situation will resolve itself. Yet the product is data and will be valuable to them in any way. How can they get C-level to move forward now?
I think that's a good example. There may be some longer term benefits that pay off. Maybe some short term benefits that pay off from these unexpected vectors. So if you can show this C-suite how you how this data is going to help them protect what they have, and how maybe they can make use of what they have now. Maybe they don't have to wait a long time to see some return on that investment. I think that's part of the concern that people have, is when there's so much uncertainty going on, and they don't know what the world is going to look like in 12 months or 6 months or 3 months. Well, that brings their planning horizon and their buying horizon down tight. So it's very difficult to change some of these external factors. We don't know what's going to happen either. But I think if you can focus in on where maybe you can give them some short-term incremental gains, so there's not this long payoff to get any return. Your short-term solution may not satisfy the longer-term problem. There may be still more data that you want to collect and be able to bring back. Maybe the future picture is even better, but perhaps there's a beachhead kind of a position that you can do now, that's useful. And it may be, in some cases, you might have to just maybe make an investment, and perhaps this is a place where you might give them some free components so there's no real risk to them. Maybe that's a way to get them started on this, even if they're not laying out a lot of money. Or maybe you've got some sort of a condition that what you pay is somewhat reflective of how much you're saving them. That may not be a strategy that you use in every customer or in every market cycle, but there may be some opportunities to getting creative with that now.
Okay. Anonymous asks, It seems like everyone is trying to offer webinars as part of their process while everyone is working from home. Have you seen any signals that people are hitting webinar overload, or is it still a useful tactic?
I don't know, how many people do we still have on this call? They're getting overloaded. No, it's a good question. I think people will invest their time where they see a return, where they see value. A lot of times, if these webinars are just informational and they're just filling time, well, yeah, okay, I'm going to start to burn out on that. But if you show me how your topic delivers on some must-have information, okay, now you've got my attention. That's worth investing an hour to watch or 30 minutes to watch, whatever. So I think yeah, there's a lot of noise out there, but that's always kind of been that way. And so to stand out in that market, you've got to have something that brings your message up above the noise and makes it clear to them that you've got something that can help. And that kind of goes back to that understanding of how their business works, maybe presenting them with a new message or new idea that they hadn't thought about. This is new terrain for them too. Customers are trying to adapt, same as you are. Your competitors are trying to do the same kind of thing. They're out there freaking out. Their sales forecasts are imploding too. So I think positioning yourself as a resource to help stabilize this and show them a path that maybe they hadn't seen before, or at least an alternative that they may have not considered, can be engaging to people. They're like, okay, that's some new information I haven't seen before. It's not same old, and I can see where that might be useful to me in this current scenario.
Okay. And follow up to that, have you seen anything recently that you just thought was a little more eye-catching than the average webinars that you keep seeing kind of pop up?
Oh, again, I think it goes back to the topic and the timelines. It's really beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So it's going to depend a lot on the audience that you're going out. I do like the prospecting efforts that reflect some understanding of where I'm at. I think that showing that empathy and understanding is important to me, because if you don't convince me out of the gate that you know what's going on, if your message seems clueless, I've been seeing a lot of prospecting messages that seem to be completely oblivious to the world is struggling around us. I lose confidence in them, because I'm like, if you're just that out of touch now, how much are you going to show me that I don't already know? So I think at some level, showing them some recognition that you understand where they're at, and that's why you're wanting to talk to them. I think that will make it, those kind of pitches, I think, are a little bit more engaging, because they feel a little bit more tailored and timely, and not just some generic message. I think, and again, with the timely, I think it will help if you can if people can see where there's something that they can use out of this, whether it may be longer term education at some level. I think we're all going around cleaning our house and taking care of projects that we've been ignoring for time, where it was kind of a windfall. Businesses are doing the same, and so in some cases you may get them to invest a little time, because they see like, okay, yeah, this is the time I really need to look at my cloud migration strategy. Can't do it today, but you know what? This is a good time to think about this, and maybe I'll talk with these people that can help me do that. I think that that's one strategy. If you don't have an immediate ROI that you can give them, at least then perhaps position them to where they're like seeing this is a good use of time for future planning.
Perfect. This person says, just starting out as an executive and loan salesman, for a very early startup tasked with building the pricing and strategy to sell our product and ultimately our team, what are the first things you would advise doing once I start given unprecedented times we're in? So
can you repeat a piece of that? Because like the second half of that, because I just want to make sure I get the right spin on it.
yeah, so they're basically asking, where do they even begin? Like, what are the first things you think they should do since they're in this role? They are responsible for building a strategy to sell the product.
Actually, that's not a bad time to be doing that. This is a good time for customer discovery. I do a lot of sales win-loss analysis. Customers bring me in to find out why didn't you buy? What's going on? And I find that they're much more willing to talk to me when I come in and say, look, I don't work for these guys. I don't have a dog in this hunt. So I just want to know the truth. And that the fact that they know that what they say to me isn't going to be turned around as my objection handling and trying to close them. They'll talk. They'll tell me what's going on, what's important to them, what their priorities are, things that they like about our solution, things that they don't. It's a much more open dialogue. And I think you can potentially use that same approach with this time. Maybe you get in there and you say, you have the message where they understand, look, I know you can't buy anything right now. I realize this is a challenging time, but I'd like to understand, maybe this is a good time we can talk about your operations. I'd like to get a better understanding. So perhaps in the future we can find something that fits. It may be a little less threatening. And so they may be a little bit more willing to talk to you and help you define your value message and figure out what your MVP product might have to be to solve in this new environment. I think that would be one strategy that leverages this time, leverages their willingness to talk, leverages potentially a way that you can make this kind of a low risk conversation and make it productive. Now, that assumes that you don't have to sell them immediately. If you are trying to sell them immediately, keeping the risk low for them is probably another better way to approach this. So trials, proof of concepts, things like that, maybe again a low risk way for them to get a return on that investment, because they're perhaps other than their time, which maybe hopefully they have a little bit on their hands, there's not a real risk for them. I guess it's a cost benefit thing. If you can show a payoff relative to the risk, that they're still going to move. That fundamentally hasn't changed. It's just how we show that payoff is shifted a little bit.
Okay. And KPX, so they had a conversation on Slack yesterday about training, and this being a good time for technical founders to overcome the stereotypes of sales training. He asks, what are some of your favorite sales methodologies and training programs?
I mean, it's a bit old school, but it's the spin selling has been a friend of mine for a long time, because I think it gets into and it's really well suited for this time. The spin selling is the SPIN is an acronym, situation. It's an acronym for 4 types of questions. First type of question is situational questions. What's going on? What are you guys doing? All that kind of stuff. A lot of cases, we can figure that out on our own before we talk to them. The others are the problem question, trying to uncover where the issues are. And then the driver of it is the third, the I, the implication. So what? So what happens if you don't fix that problem? And the N is getting them really to start to articulate some of these things back to us. But I think I would train on getting people to comfortable with asking those questions and adapting. this is not a scripted sale. You can't just get in there and read off the same blah, blah, blah value prop that you said before. I think this is a little bit more of an iterative, adaptive sale than many of us have seen before. And so the spin selling model, the reason I like it is I think those problem questions and those implication questions are really important for people to master and get comfortable in that probing environment. I like role plays where there's hidden information. Sales reps, you give a sales rep a buyer profile with some hidden objections and some hidden implications of not solving a problem. And then you have another rep that has to dig that stuff out through their questioning, through their probing, putting, a lot of customers in this situation have faced this problem. How's that affecting you? If the customer is not offering up information, you start putting things out in front of them that maybe get them to start thinking about that. But that kind of a training can be a new experience for people, and getting them comfortable with that, I think is important to do in a training environment, because if they haven't done that kind of a question before, salespeople, we're superstitious. We like things the way that they've been, and this, I'm going to wear my lucky shirt today because I know I'm going to close the deal. Now we've taken a lot of that away from them. They're going to be salespeople. We tend to be nervous about saying new things to people because we don't know exactly how it's going to work. We're not used to voicing those words. We're not exactly sure how their objections are going to be. And so that makes people averse. They don't implement the ideas that we maybe want them to be implementing with customers. But if they've had a chance to practice it in a training session and everybody's made a fool of themselves, we've all had fun, yeah, okay, we've all done this, but you work it out together, they get used to it, then I think then they're in a better position to actually use the training in the field, and because they've kind of got that muscle memory because they've been role playing it out internally with you and with their peers. Okay, change up. Now I'm going to just say this to a customer, and they know how to ask the questions in a constructive way. And I think some of it is I'm listening for problems. They're not always, the customers are not always going to say, here's my problem. You may have to listen for things. They may say, oh yeah, well, our guy's been out. Oh wow, that has to be really hard. What does that mean for you with that person out? Well, she's not here, and that gives me these challenges. Oh wow, how's that? Gosh, that seems like that would impact your ability to operate or your ability to serve customers. How are you dealing with that? That kind of a conversational probing, pulling on the yarn of the sweater, that's where you start to find the problems, the value. You also get the customer thinking about this issue. We tend to be focused on what we sell, but customers, a lot of times, they've got 50,000 things on their mind. And until we get them focused on a problem, get some mind share, they kind of ignore what we have to say. So I think training sales reps on how to ask those questions, get the buyer's mindset focused on this problem to where they start to recognize, oh shoot, yeah, there's some stuff I didn't know about. This rep actually asking some good questions. We should be thinking about that. That can be productive. It is, and I think that makes you that much more welcome to come in the next time, because the buyer feels like they're learning something. There's some progress that's being delivered by you being there, some value of you being there. It's not just a take. So again, a little bit of a long answer, what would I train on? But I like the spin selling model, and I like for people to role play it out and get used to asking those kind of questions, because that'll be how they get good at this.
Perfect. So another anonymous question, not pandemic related, which is totally fine, but they are looking to hire their first salesperson. Any words of wisdom as I go about looking for and evaluating candidates?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hiring is a critical thing. A lot of people don't put a lot of time into it. I've come to find that the cost of a bad hire is about 2 years quota, because it takes me 6 months to figure out that they're not right in the job, and maybe then I've got to start all over again and go through a hunt to find somebody, and then hire them. Maybe now I'm a year in, and I got 6 months to figure out if that person's any good. All of a sudden, you've got a couple of years that you've got no sales productivity for that territory. So it's worth putting in the extra time to hire. I do think that it makes sense to, when you're doing this, to figure out what does the salesperson actually have to do to be successful, and what experience do they actually have doing something like that. Maybe in a different industry, might be just demonstrating that skill, but do they have any history of performing this behavior? So if you're concerned about their ability to deal with the executive suite, because that's going to be one of the functions that they have to have. They need to be able to at least frame a message that's going to resonate in the C-suite, that they can put in the hands of their prospect. I might say, tell me about a time when you've had to deal with C-suite priorities, either directly, making the pitch to those executives, or tell me about a time when the decision maker was in the C-suite, but you were blocked from getting to them by maybe a first line or second line buyer. How did you get through that? How did you establish the ROI that the CEO or CFO is going to care about? And how did you get that message to them through this scenario? So, but it takes a little bit of thought to do that, and so anticipating the skills that people are going to need to have to be successful in this job is important. It's and if you're doing this over the phone or video, that's another good question, because that's going to be a very applicable job behavior. But I want to know that they've actually done it. Tell me about a time when you had to sell and you couldn't get face to face with a customer. When you couldn't see them and you had to do everything just by phone. How did that work? What did you like about that situation? What was challenging to you? Because I want to find out, do they thrive in that environment, or are they just telling me that they'll be good at it just because they're trying to get the job? I want to see where they've actually done it and figured it out. And I think also part of that same let's show me kind of a mentality. I like to see where people have sold in an environment that I'm dealing with. And when I say that, it means have they handled themselves in the part of the sales cycle that I'm going to assign them to. If they are expected to do a full cycle sale from prospecting through closing, I want to see their experience doing that, because a lot of sales reps don't have that. If they've sold on a team, as many sales reps have, they may be very good at a part of this, but not the whole spectrum. Maybe they've been an inside sales rep the whole time, and then they've gotten things up to a certain qualification level, and then they've teed it up and handed it off to a field sales rep. That's great, but I need to know, do they know how to close? I mean, they don't have a lot of practice. I'm sure that they give me a lot of good experience as a prospector and qualifier, which is critical. I highly value that. But do they then know how to close and handle objections and drive a deal through to close? I want to know, tell me about a time that you had to manage a deal through to close. Or, if maybe they're a field sales rep and they have been a closer and they have worked things through to get signature and get implementation, decision, all that kind of stuff. Tell me about a time when you had to generate your own leads. Tell me about a time that you had to qualify buyers before you could even know what solution benefits to present to them. How did you do that? What worked for you in that situation? Because I want to know, can they perform in the environment that I'm going to throw them in? I don't necessarily want to have to do on-the-job training if I don't have to. So understanding what they need to do through that sales cycle, what what phases are they going to handle? What skills are they going to need along that way? And do they have examples of where they've exercised those?
Okay. I think we're in the last 5 minutes, so I will let, if anyone has any last minute questions, please feel free to type them or raise your hand. And if we don't, we'll go ahead and wrap up. But Kent, why don't you tell us how we can get in touch with you in case there's someone who wants to reach out directly?
Yep, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably a pretty good place to start. I am Kent H. Jones on LinkedIn. I think that may also be in the information for the session. I welcome connecting to you, and you can message me on that. You can also follow me on LinkedIn, or excuse me, on Medium. I've been publishing more things up there, and I'm also on Twitter at Jones_Kent. So if you want to direct message me there, that can be a way to engage. And then if there's obviously a deeper need that you want to get into, I'm happy to exchange email addresses and phone numbers with people. I'm willing to set up some time to talk if you have some unique challenges that you're facing.
Thank you. So I didn't see any other questions come through, so I think we'll go ahead and leave it at that. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Happy selling.
Thanks.